Hi, in this video, we'll take a look at the new Python Git deployment support for Azure websites. I'm logged into the Azure Portal. I'll create a new website from the gallery. Under App Frameworks, you'll see three Python frameworks available: Bottle, Django, and Flask. We'll pick Bottle. Azure is now preparing the website. The website is now ready. Click on Browse to navigate to it. As you can see, it's a small but functional website. Let's enable Git deployment for the site. Click on Set up deployment from source control, local Git repository. This will set up a repository on Azure. When commits are pushed to this repository, Azure automatically performs a deployment. The URL to the repository appears here. We'll clone this repository to our local machine. And set up the remote. Now let's take a look at the sources before we start making modifications. app.py is the startup script for the application. It sets up the development server for our Bottle app. Routes.py has the routes for all three pages. They use a Bottle template engine to load each view. Each view uses a base view called layout.tpl, which loads the CSS, JavaScript, and defines the navigation bar. The PyProject SLN files are for PTVS. The proxy here is used to route the calls to our application when we're using a virtual environment. Requirements.txt defines the external packages that are used by this application. And the web.config files are used by IIS. Based on which Python runtime we're using, it will either use the 2.7 or the 3.4 version of the configuration file. Now we don't see here a virtual environment, and that's because it's not saved in the repository. We don't keep it in the repository. Azure will create one on demand and install the packages there. and each developer should create their own virtual environment on their local machine. So we'll do that now. We'll create a virtual env called env. Install the requirements into it, and now we can run the app. It starts up the server on port 5555 on localhost. And you can see the output here in the console. So let's stop this and make a small change to the app. An easy change to make is to print out the Python version. So we'll change the text here. Save, and then run again. Reload the About page, and it shows that I'm running the Mac version of Python 2.7.5. So we'll commit that change. And push it to Azure. Since this is the first deployment, it's going to create a virtual environment. So that will take a little bit of time, but subsequent commits will be faster. Note that you can use Python 3.4 as well as Python 2.7, and our documentation shows how you can do this via a runtime.txt file. So next it will install the requirements. And that happens on every deployment, but pip will skip any packages that are already installed, so that will be pretty fast. And here bottle is pretty small, so that installs quickly too. Finally, it created a web.config file based on the web.27.config, because that's the runtime that's used by default. Now I can go to the Azure Portal, and if I refresh the deployments page, I should be able to see this deployment that we just made. If I expand it, get more details, I can view the log of the deployment command, and that's the same output we saw in the console. Finally, let's go browse the updated website. If I go to the About page, we'll see that this is running a different version of Python, and it's the 32-bit Windows version of Python 2 that's running on the Azure website. So for more information on Git deployment of Python application, there are tutorials for Bottle, Django, and Flask in the Python Dev Center on azure.microsoft.com. And there you'll have information such as how to select the Python runtime, and also how to deal with packages that are more difficult to install, such as packages that require a compiler. So we'll show you how to use wheels, etc. So thanks for watching.